here with Dream here in Cincinnati, and to my Facebook friends and families, good evening to you also. This is just a quick pop up that I'm doing. And if you're on YouTube, this is why we say go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you will always get the alerts when we're coming on. So, just going to give everyone a few minutes to come on. You guys know I don't normally come on Thursday nights, but I'm just going to give you a few minutes. And for those that will be catching the replay of this, thank you so very much. And what I'll do is, while we're waiting for everyone to come on, I want you to know that I'm going to be talking about marriages. Actually, I was supposed to release this yesterday. I was supposed to release this yesterday, and my schedule just I just didn't. So I repented for it already, and hope that the people who's supposed to listen to this, they will find this message. So how you doing, CJ? Thank you for joining us. So listen, I'm going to be talking about marriages, but I want you to know that we are so vested in healthy families and healthy marriages that as an equipping center, we have been afforded or blessed the opportunity to provide several platforms to strengthen marriages and strengthen families. And so one of it is our marriage enrichment ministry, which will be going virtual. That's Pastors Darren and LaShawn. They will be on tomorrow night, I believe, at 7 o'clock. They come on every third Friday night virtually, and every first Friday night they're in person. And if you should need any, you want to talk to somebody in between then, and you just want one-on-one, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, okay? And so I want to talk about marriages under attack. And I kind of understand now why this message was supposed to be released on yesterday, considering that the what was it called? The Respect for Marriage Act was passed. And so I did not know that until this evening. And I thought, maybe that's why one of the reasons that I was supposed to release this message. So I'm going to get ready to get started. If you have not already invited someone, please do that. I hope to only be with you for a few minutes. So, hello to my hubby who's watching from another place right now. And listen, quick pop up. And for those of you who say my marriage is not in trouble, I don't need to watch this. I don't think anything's going to happen to us. You're exactly the couple that I want to talk to, because I want you to know, as well as those who say, I could always need a little encouragement, a little direction, a little assistance, a little prayer, because those who feel like, no, we're fine. I want you to know that the enemy is very subtle. No attack just come out. He doesn't just come out. Even when God was talking to Cain, he said, listen, the enemy is at your door. He's just waiting for an opportunity. And so we know from even Genesis that the enemy waits for an opportunity to come out and attack us. We know that a snare is not something that you see laying out in the open. Talk to any hunter, anybody that hunts. A snare is not something that is out in the open, else it would not be a snare, else it would not be something that can just catch you off guard, right? And so this is for those of you who have not fallen in that snare because you don't see it yet, or those who says, listen, I hear my husband saying a little of this, or I hear my wife saying a little of that, and I just thought, okay, well, no big deal, no big deal. But I want you to know that there is a real enemy out to destroy your marriage. And when I heard about the Respect for Marriage Act, I thought, okay, marriages are going to really be under attack. Not so much from the government, but there's an enemy that has a seat in the heart of some of our government officials. And the enemy is just out to destroy marriages, especially those who will be a very real threat to his kingdom. Okay. If you're maybe God has chosen you and your husband to be leaders in the community, leaders in the area of art, or even in being in a restaurant, wherever, because every leader is not just in a church, in a pulpit. All right. So listen, let's go with this. Let me first say that this is what I heard about 4 o'clock yesterday morning, that what you are going through right now in your marriage will not be unto death. So for those of you who are struggling, who are saying, listen, I can't take no more, I'm just ready to give up. The Lord wants you to know that what you're going through right now is not unto death, unto the death of your marriage, okay? And so, what some of you are experiencing is an attack of the enemy to destroy your marriage and your family. The enemy is not just coming for the husband, he's not just coming for the wife, but he wants to, as we've been talking over the past few weeks about trauma in children, he wants to affect the whole family. If he can plant enough seeds in the hearts and minds of your children now, as they see you argue all the time, or as they see maybe daddy don't come home, maybe mama don't come home, as the children see a whole lot of things that are not godly, then the enemy is also using those things that transpire between you and your husbands as seeds to kind of pave the way or open the door for him to attack your children later on. Okay. So what I want you to remember, I'm going to go just a little, just a couple of scriptures. I want to remind you of Ephesians 6:11 through 13. It says, "Put on," even for those who don't read the Bible. I know I might be talking to some people who said, "I'm not church." Listen, just because you're not church does not does not mean that the enemy will not attack your marriage. I'm not just talking to believers, but I'm also talking to those who don't know that they're believers yet. Because at 16, I didn't know that I was a believer. Okay. Even though I had been told some things that God had called me, yada, 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 I did not know that I was a believer. As a matter of fact, I did not even know I was God. So this is not a church message, but this is a message for the sons and daughters of God, even if you don't know that you belong to him yet. Even if you don't know it yet, I want you to just pay attention. And so Ephesians 6:11 through 13. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God. Now, I want you to focus on 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. In high places. And normally those high places are what? Your thoughts, right? Seats in the government, right? Places that can affect your decisions and how you live. And so what we want to do is let you know that the enemy has a plan for your marriage. And God loves us so much that he's saying, I got a plan for the enemy. While the enemy is trying to destroy your marriage and trying to plan for your marriage, God says, I got a plan for him. And he already let us know what a part of the plan of the enemy is. And it's called the lake of fire. It's called separation from God forever. It is the lake of fire. And oftentimes what we have to do is to remind the enemy, I know you're in. So God not only has a plan for us. Hi, Bridget. Thank you for watching. God has a plan for the enemy. In Jeremiah, he says, I know the plans I have for you, and they are of good and not of evil, right? And so God has a plan for all of us. For the enemy, he has a plan for us, and God is God. He is supreme. He is, Elohim. Whatever he says he's going to do, that he is going to do. And so I want you to really pay attention to that verse, that you are not wrestling against your husband, because the enemy is going to come up with a lot of things, try to start arguments and strife, just a lot of doors he want to open to destroy your marriage. And like I say, even if you think, well, we're doing good now, yada, 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 listen, this is what I know. What I know is that there have been couples, and neither one of them, neither the husband or the wife, were in church. They were, club buddies, drinking buddies, whatever. They partied all the time. They loved their little wine night out or whatever. But as soon as they one of them decided to make sure, like, I want to give my life to the Lord. I mean, I feel like there's more to life. I think God is calling me. And then they began to answer that call. The enemy then comes in. As long as you're not thinking about God, as long as you have not just given your all to him, like, God, I'm just going to give my all to you. I want you to come and live into my heart and my life. I want you to govern my life. When you haven't done that, then you're no threat to the enemy. But as when you begin to say, Lord, I accept you as Lord. Father, I need you. When you do that, then the enemy is like, oh, wait a minute. They're waking up. They're waking up. I better do something, because you're not a threat to him if you're not on the side of the Lord. It is when you confess Jesus as Savior and he begins to live on the inside of you, you begin to grow in him, you become a real threat to the enemy at that time. A real threat. When destiny begins to unfold in your life, you become a real threat to the enemy, and you will see him throwing everything at you, attacking people around you, whether it's your parents, your children, your siblings. You will then see who the enemy is. But what he wants is to be hidden. He wants to be hidden in maybe the way your children act, maybe the way your wife, your husband, your co-workers act. He wants to be hidden in them so that you see them and do not know that he's really coming after you, coming after your peace, coming after your joy, coming after your destiny. A few years ago, and I meant to get one of the books, I wrote a book called this the wife, the warrior, the wife, the warrior. And in it, I talk about how sometimes you got to throw in your bouquet. You know, everybody loves a beautiful bouquet when they get married. And I said, but sometimes you got to throw in that bouquet and exchange it for a sword, because you have to fight. You have to fight to maintain that marriage. You know, the way you felt when you said, I do, your honeymoon night. You got to fight to maintain that, especially when you are on the Lord's side. Okay. When you are on the Lord's side, you've got to fight to maintain that, because the enemy does not want a good, clear representation of God and the church in the earth. And marriages are a representation of God in the earth. Okay, he doesn't want that. And so he has to distort the view of marriages, right? He has to tear them apart. He has to say, look, this is how a marriage could look like this. A marriage could look like that. He has to distort that. He has to get people to say, well, I don't want to, I don't think I have to be married to do A, B, and C. As a matter of fact, one of the things I heard yesterday, I believe, with this abortion act is that there were a lot of young women who were saying, well, since I can't have an abortion, I mean, young women like 18, 19, they're saying, let me just go ahead and get my tubes tied. I'm just going to go ahead and get my tubes tied at 18 or 19. What? So no family, no traditional family. You know, one of the commandments or orders that not only the children of Israel was given, but even Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. And then the children of Israel, be fruitful and multiply. And so when you've got young women saying, look, I want to have all the sex I want to have, but I don't want to get caught pregnant, so tie my tubes now. Then you're taking yourself out of the way of that covenant. You will not be able to be fruitful and multiply. Okay, so listen, the enemy is doing what he can to destroy families. And so when you're in your household, you and your spouse and your children, he's also trying to destroy future families by getting you to model what a bad marriage looked like. Not what a husband loves your wife as Christ loved the church, or wives love your husband and honor them. No, that's not what they're seeing. And so when that's not what's being modeled in the home, and you're just thinking, me and my husband are having an argument, you're not thinking that the children are affected or the children see that. But the enemy is setting up destruction for future marriages so that the children won't have a clear concept of what marriage is supposed to be like. Come on, somebody. All right. They want to mess up the concept. And so when they grow up, they have these failed attempt at marriages because it wasn't modeled before them. It's only when they begin to have a relationship with God that they understand this is what marriage is supposed to be about. It's not about me always getting my way. I'm supposed to please my spouse, and my spouse is supposed to please me. Okay. So listen, the wife, the warrior. Not really promoting that, but I want you to know that after I released that book, all hell broke loose in my own marriage. It was like the enemy was like, how in the world you going to try to tell somebody to save their marriage? I'm going to stop you. And of course, we know he couldn't stop me. He couldn't stop me because I kept thinking, what is happening here? He could not stop me. Okay. He could not stop my husband. He could not stop us. The book got released. People got equipped. There were exercises in the book that you need to do. But the main thing was to look at yourself, and to see if there were any doors that you opened in your own marriage. And of course, I had opened some. Not only had I opened some doors, but my husband had opened some. Not only had he opened some, but we bought that was inherited, right? We bought some things that were inherited through our bloodline with us in that marriage. And that is why we don't, at DREEMM, If you come to Dream for marital counseling, we do not counsel like traditional marriage counselors do. We're gonna look at you and be like, okay, you've got a spirit of pride, and you know, it ain't about just who's gonna take out the trash. It ain't about how many kids you're gonna have, who gonna handle the finances. But listen, what did you inherit spiritually that can cause damage to this marriage? Look like you might have a spirit of pride. Oh, you still dealing with pornography? You might have a spirit of perversion. And so we deal with that because we know that just who gonna take out the trash and who gonna balance the books and who how you gonna discipline the kids, that's not enough right now. When you have an unseen enemy coming in to try to destroy your marriage, that is just surface stuff. And that is not just what we get into. We want to go a little deeper and harder in our preparing you for marriage. I want you to know you do have a real enemy. He has many names. And in our deliverance training class, we teach the many names because the name tells who he is. It represents his characteristics, just like the name of God does. And so you need to know when he begins to manifest in a certain way, this is how he's operating in your marriage. This is what he's trying to do. If you see that the deceiver, you know, the Bible says, the Lord says, look, he was a liar from the beginning and he's still a liar. He's a deceiver. So when that starts happening, when you start cooking up ideas, when you start hearing thoughts in your mind, like, I'm not, you know, I'm going to keep this from my wife, I'm going to keep this from my husband, you know that the deceiver is at work. All right. The deceiver is at work. And all he needs is just a little agreement with you. No matter how he comes into that marriage, he needs just a little agreement with you. And the more you agree with him, the wider the gap is, the wider the door becomes that he can come and attack you and your family. And so some of you have yet to realize how important your marriage is in the earth. Okay? Your marriage is so important in the earth. So never underestimate the power that you have, no matter what arena, whether you're in church or, like I said before, whether you're in the arts or whether you're, you know, a hotel management, whatever you got, wherever you are, I want you to know you can be running a newspaper, you can be a doctor, you know, you can be the owner of a Chick-fil-A or whatever, just work there. Wherever you are, your marriage is significant because there are going to be people that God will send your way that you're going to influence, whether you influence them through words, whether you influence them through deed, or whether you influence them because you are modeling, you know, what the covenant relationship of God looked like through the act of marriage. And so you have to understand how important you are. God knows the plans that he has for you. He knew the characteristics. You are with your husband and you are with your wife because the Lord knew what he put in you. He knew exactly what he put in you, what he put in your spouse, and he knew that that makeup, you know, that characteristics um, joining together, he knew what it would produce. Like, now listen, Dana told me today, she said, Mom, I was looking at some recipes, and this one lady was saying that she put mustard in her dressing. And I said, I have no comments. I have no comments. Now, if you put mustard in your dressing, I have no comments, right? That is not familiar to me. Now, if you said that you put sage in your dressing or poultry seasoning or celery or onion in your dressing, then I understand that, okay? I understand that those flavors are going to come together, right? But if you say I put mustard in my dressing, I don't understand how those flavors are going to come together. So it's just like with your husband and with your wife, the Lord understood what flavors you have through your makeup, through what you inherited, through your bloodline. He knows the flavors that you have that need to come together so that you can produce something in the earth that's appealing, that's appetizing, right? Something that people will look at and say, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. And so the enemy doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want that to happen at all. One of my prayers, you'll read it in the book, and you probably have heard me talk about it a few times. I talked about when I was on my way to Cincinnati, relocating from Atlanta, and I said, Lord, will I be married again? I said, is there, you know, someone for me who can love me like you love me? And so The image he gave me was that he put Adam to sleep and took out a rib and he made Eve. And I said, so that means that I'm somebody's missing rib. I am somebody's missing rib, and they can't be whole until we get together. So the Lord knows who rib belongs to who. He knew who to put who with. He knew how to join you up. And you might say, but man, I think God might have missed it because me and my spouse has just been fighting and fighting and fighting. God does not miss anything. All things work together for what? The good of those who love the Lord and those who are the called, right? All things. Your marriage was predestined to be a threat to the enemy. If it seems like all hell is broken loose in your marriage, that's because there is a greater assignment on your marriage to attack the kingdom of darkness. And like I said, you might not even belong to God right now, but that doesn't mean that the enemy doesn't know that somewhere down the future, somewhere down in the future, you are really going to come and be a threat to the enemy. So before you can find out who your identity is and the purpose of your marriage, the enemy is going to try to destroy it. He's going to try to destroy your marriage, distort your view with each other. You thought you just married that man because he was so fine. You thought you married that woman because look, she was all of that in a bag of chips, and she knew how to cook, and she could do this, and she could do that. No, those are good qualities in him. Those are good qualities in her. But God says there's something deeper. It's something deeper than why God put you together. So I want you to hold on. I want you to hang on in there. I want you to seek God. Now, it is true that some people married their spouse and they weren't supposed to. They weren't. That is not who you were supposed to be with. What advice do I have for that? Seek God. Seek God. Because even your marrying somebody that you weren't supposed to did not catch God off guard. It wasn't like he was sitting up in heaven and the angels came and said, oh Lord, you never guess what happened. Sister Pocketbook married, Mr. Banana. What we gonna do now? Sister Pocketbook was not supposed to marry Mr. Banana, but she was supposed to marry, Captain Crunch. What we gonna do now? Even if you married the wrong person, it did not catch God off guard. He already knew. And his word says that all things work together for the good of those who love him and who are the called according to his purpose. So what you have to do is ask yourself, do you love God? Not do you love her? Do you love him? Do you love God? Do you love God? Are you the called? Because if you love him and if you are the call, then listen, it is going to work out for God's glory and for your good. Now, am I telling you to say, oh, I listened to Apostle Deborah with DREEMM and she said, I'm supposed to hang in here because yada, yada, yada. First thing you need to do is seek God. If you don't know him, I invite you to ask him tonight to show you who he is, to introduce yourself to him. He'll introduce himself to you. That I know. Listen, whatever the reason you thought you got married for, I want you to know that there is something that was hidden in your spiritual DNA. There is something in your just like we have a natural DNA, we have a spiritual DNA. And there's something in our spiritual DNA that draws us to people, right? Good, bad, and indifferent. Whether something that Mike has been saying lately, he said we're all a part of prophecy. Whether we're on the right side or the wrong side, we're all part of prophecy. We're all living in this season at this time, fulfilling prophecy. Even Judas had to fulfill prophecy. He had to turn on Jesus. He was fulfilling prophecy. And so make sure that you pray and you get into a relationship with God so that your marriage is fulfilling prophecy. Your marriage is doing what it is supposed to do here in the earth, okay? The enemy may be trying to abort those plans, but in the name of Jesus Christ, I decree that the plans of the Lord for your marriage will stand. Yes, you may have to go through a lot, but this one thing I know, one of the reasons that I can, that over the years I've been effective in ministry is because of a lot of the personal experiences I've had. And so the Lord allowed me, or he trained me to have some encounters with some things that I could not see in the natural, put it like that. He allowed me to have some encounters to get to know how they operate, to see how they operate personally. And so when somebody calls me and says this is going on and that is going on, then I am like, I know that spirit. I know what that is. I know, okay. And I'm able, because God has already allowed me to war in that particular arena myself and gain victory. I'm able then to turn around and say, this is how you handle this. This is how you war against this. The older women are supposed to do what? Teach the younger women. All right? This is how you do that. This is how you overcome. Sometimes you just got to be quiet. Don't always be arguing, because the enemy will use even you. He will use even your knowledge against you by expediting it so that your husband or your wife become numb, deaf rather, to your voice. Yet you begin to speak and they don't want to hear anything you got to say, because the enemy is like shutting their ear. He's grabbing your words while they're in the air. I mean, you can say something like pumpkin pie and they'll hear you say watermelon and you're like, that don't even sound alike. But the enemy is grabbing your words out of the air because he wants confusion. And so when that happens, you know that you're dealing with a spirit of confusion. Now, here are some of the ways that you may detect. I'm going to read this, okay? Detect the presence and plan of the enemy in your household. Distance. He has to begin to create distance between you so that he can begin to attack the unity of the marriage. So the first one is distance. Distractions help to create, and distractions help to create and sustain distance. You're just working. You're just helping out at the kids' school. You're just hanging out with the boys. You're just getting to church every time the doors open or every time your pastor tell you to be there. You see, the enemy doesn't care what he used, what method to draw you. He just want to make sure that he can draw you away from your spouse. He can cause you to be so busy that you more distance is created, and the two of you become like a ship in the night. You become like a ship in the night because the enemy is trying to make sure that you do not stay together. Number three, doubt. He is working on taking the trust out of your marriage. He does this subtly and to cause you to begin to doubt each other, so that I think he lying to me. Did he really go to the store? Does it take him 3 hours to go to the store? The store's just 5 minutes up the street. He does anything. Who is he in there talking on the phone to? Is she really going to see her girlfriend? He begins to plant all of these thoughts in your mind because he wants to create doubt. He wants doubt to come in and just take a stand in your marriage. Communication. He must affect the way that you communicate, or else you may come together against him. He's got to stop you from praying together. He's got to stop you from even just having general conversation together. And he does that with distractions, right? He's got to make sure that you don't even have normal conversations with each other. He's got to affect the way that you communicate with each other. He does not want to be exposed. Therefore, he must pit you against each other. He's pitting you and your husband against each other, you and your wife against each other, because he does not want to be exposed. He's got to make you be convinced that your husband is the problem, and he's got to convince your husband that you are the problem. And he does this by affecting the way that you guys communicate. By your husband saying one thing, you hear another. You say one thing, your husband hears something else. Your body language. He will use even your body language. You know, this is not about husband and wife, but depending on what is going on in somebody's mind, this really did happen to me. I was at church. It was a very large church that I was a part of at that time. And so, by me being one of the leaders and it being such a large congregation, sometimes the people that I needed to give a word to or talk to might have been sitting on the other side of the church. And I would have to have tunnel vision, like, let me get to them right quick. Let me get to them right quick. And so I was careful not to be distracted if I was on assignment to go and talk to, Brother Appleby over there. And so one Sunday, I'm on my way to go talk to Brother Appleby, and one of the other leaders, he was much tall, I'm short, you guys, very much taller than I am. And he grabbed me by my shoulders and he said, I am tired of you acting like you don't see me. We're both leaders. I'm tired of you acting like you don't see me, shaking me, right? And I'm like, Deborah, don't you let that old Deborah wake up. because he might be taller than you, but you can take him down. Don't you let that old Deborah wake up. And I'm shocked, first of all. And he's saying, I'm sick and tired of you. Every Sunday you pass by me like you don't see me, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Every week you do this. You just act like I don't even exist. Okay. So I said, listen, elder so-and-so, I am on my way to talk to brother so-and-so. I did not see you. After service, I have tunnel vision. I said, but do me a favor. You said every week I've been doing this. I ignore you. I don't see you. So do me a favor. Since you see me every week, how about you coming to speak to me? Because first of all, I was thinking, well, you got to speak. Okay, I'm not going there. But anyway, I wanted to give that example because whatever spirit was operating in him, and I could list a lot of them right now, but I don't want to get off course. Those are the same spirits that can be operating in your spouse. And so you might not be thinking about anything, but your spouse will come and grab you like, I'm sick of you doing this and I'm sick of you doing that. And you'll be like, wait a minute. When did I do that? When did I say that? So that is the enemy can come in, and I'm going to get to that with your vision, what you see. And so he's trying to interpret what you see. He's trying to pervert what you see so he can still cause distance between you and your mate. And so the next one is the whispering spirit, which goes along with what I was just talking about. He whispers in your ear. Right? The whispering spirit works with what? The accuser of the brethren. The Bible tells us that he accuses us before God day and night. Well, get this. He also accuses you before your spouse. He accuses you before your spouse day and night because somebody is not only in the spirit is he accusing you, but he's also causing people outside of your marriage to speak into your husband's ear or your wife's ear so that they can cause distance. And one of the things, let me tell you guys, one of the things that has been happening so much is mother-in-laws. Mothers who refuse to let go of their sons, who are operating in witchcraft, where that spiritual umbilical cord has not been severed. Okay, the spiritual umbilical cord has not been severed, and so they are influencing their sons, almost acting as if their sons are supposed to be their husbands. Listen to me. It is a spirit, and I am dealing with people in 4 different states right now. 4 different states who are going through the identical issue where the mother-in-law is destroying the marriage, driving a wedge between the son and the wife. Now, what do we have there? Go back to Truth Tuesday. Why is that possible? Because that grown man is still dealing with the little boy syndrome. Something happened in their life that caused them to weigh the desires of their mom and the words of their mom stronger than they desire the words and the presence of their wife. Okay, so again, those whispering spirits working with the accuser of the brethren, coming in, accusing your spouse to you so that you do not see them the way that you saw them before. It has to alter your vision. It has to alter what you think and what you believe about your spouse. And so it impairs your vision, which is the next one. Jeremiah 23:16 says, thus say the Lord of hosts, do not listen to the words of the false prophets who prophesy to you. They are teaching you worthless things and are leading you into futility. They speak a vision of their own mind and imagination. They speak a vision of their own mind and imagination. Now you might say, well, he was talking about false prophets. Listen, you don't have to have the title of a prophet to be a false prophet. Okay, because a prophet is somebody that is what? Supposed to be declaring the word of the Lord. But Satan has prophets too, right? They are declaring his words. And so when you have a spiritual condition between a husband and his mother, where that umbilical cord has not been severed, then that mother is operating as a false prophet, speaking lies and dissension and creating strife between that husband and that wife. Come on now, somebody. So it impairs your vision. Even when God was training Jeremiah, he said to Jeremiah, "What do you see?" He was training him as a prophet. I want to know what you see. Tell me what you see, Jeremiah, and I can tell you if what you're seeing is correct or not. And so, those husbands whose mothers are operating in witchcraft, listen, I pray that the Holy Spirit will open up your mind and your understanding, and that you will understand the word of the Lord that says, "For this cause shall a man leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife." Okay? I pray that becomes revelation to you tonight. All right? That becomes revelation, and that you will begin to love your wife as Christ loved the church, and your wife will begin to honor you. Now, listen, we don't want you to have impaired vision. We want you to say, "God, even if strife has been going on, ask God, Lord, show me my wife. How do you see my wife? Lord, show me my husband. How do you see my husband?" Get the enemy out. Get the enemy out altogether. Altogether. Distance, distraction, doubt, communication. Thank you, Bridget, for putting that up there. The next one is strife and resentment. Strife and resentment. Once your vision is altered and you are conversing with the spirit in your mind, you begin to talk more in your mind. You think it's your thoughts, right? I had to tell somebody this recently. You think it's your thoughts. But the word of the Lord says that he knows our thoughts before they get to our mind. And I used to say, "But I thought my thoughts were created in my mind." Mm-mm. He says, "I know your thoughts before they get to your mind." So in Second Corinthians, it says to do what? Cast down thoughts and imaginations, right? So that means you can't always trust your thoughts because they did not originate with you. Did not originate with you. And so when strife and resentment comes, is because you have not cast down thoughts that were not of God. You have allowed the enemy to come in and plant seeds of distraction, destruction, strife, and bitterness, ungodly beliefs, lies, and deception. And so you have to go through a deliverance process. It's not like you can just say one day, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to stay with my wife. I'm going to stay with my husband." You can say that. But unless you've went through deliverance, all of those spirits that came in through the doors that you held open for them through your unbelief, through while the enemy was trying to separate you from your spouse, all of those spirits are saying, "Well, we're gonna stay right here with you." My husband was laughing today. He was mimicking something that one of our granddaughters, when she was a little girl, she would always say, "I'll go with you." Even if you was going to the bathroom, she was like, "Okay, I'll go with you." Those demons want to go with you wherever you go. So it's not enough for you to just say, "I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to stop doing that." If they have had any place in your life, you must be delivered from them. You must go through the process of deliverance. And so, strife and resentment, once your vision is altered and you are conversing with the enemy or the spirit in your mind more than your spouse, you are ripe for strife and resentment. What does that look like? It looks like a critical spirit, okay? Meaning that there is nothing your spouse can do right. If you tell them, critical is like if your husband tell you to paint the wall black, you go paint the wall black. "You so doggone stupid. Why you paint that wall black? You know that wall should have been painted white." And you like, "But you said paint the wall black." Nothing you can do. When there is a critical spirit there is nothing you can do because the enemy has altered the way that your spouse sees you, so that you are now the enemy. You are now the enemy. So nothing you do is going to please your spouse. This is why you got to learn how to pray, and you got to get help, because you can become weary. When you have had to pray for your spouse for a long time by yourself and you're thinking, "Oh my God, this is just crazy." You need help. You need to get back up. You need to get back up. You need some help. All right. And so you want to make sure that you get help, because that critical spirit has got to go. It has got to go. Compassion has to take its place. Empathy has to take its place. And then after all of those are in place, what do you get right for? Adultery. And I'm not just talking about adultery with a physical person. In my book, I talk about adultery with a spirit. I talk about I was like, what do you do when you know that your husband is having an affair, but there are no restaurant receipts, there is no perfume on his shirt, there's no lipstick on his collar, but you know that somebody else has his heart. You know that he's drifting away from you. That's when you know you're dealing with spiritual adultery. Okay? Spiritual adultery is the first thing that we are into, the first type of adultery that we're introduced to in the Bible. When God be like, y'all committed adultery against me. What did he mean by telling the children of Israel, y'all committed adultery against me? It meant your heart went someplace else. God was saying, I was doing all I could do, all that I needed to do to take care of you, to provide for you, to feed you, but you went playing you act like a little whore. Or you decided it's okay if I have this God and have you. So what is that? That is adultery. That is what, when you just think that you a bigamy, that you think I can have two wives, I think I can have two husbands. No, God is saying no, only me, only me. And so when you commit spiritual adultery, you know that that is a battle that you must fight in the spirit, right? Because you don't know which principality it is, but you do know that witchcraft is involved. Okay, that you do know. And for those of you who think that witchcraft is not prevalent right now, it is. But we have authority over that. One of the things I say is, look, don't come here. I'm gonna go Bible on you. Suffer not a witch to live. Suffer not a witch to live. Suffer not a witch to live. I'm gonna go word on you. You keep coming up against me like that. And so these are, I'm gonna wind this up. Adultery, you are primed for it at that time because you don't see your spouse the same way. She can still be looking good, but because your vision has been altered, you don't see that. She can still be intelligent, he can still be fine, but because your vision has been altered and you have allowed the enemy to just come in and distract you and paint a picture of how he wants you to see your spouse so that you don't see your spouse as you anymore. You don't see you guys as one anymore because division has come in and division has taken place. So listen, but don't be discouraged. There is hope. Don't be discouraged. You may feel like quitting. You may feel like you have had enough and that you can't take it anymore. I'm telling you, been there, wrote the book about it. Like, I just can't take this anymore. And then once I realized that I was not fighting against my husband, but I was fighting against the spirit, I can remember when we were living in Forest Park and we were going through all of that. I would be like, oh, I get home and let the garage door up and I would see his car. I'd be like, oh, he's home. But then God began to teach me some things about me and to teach me how to pray for my marriage. And so I went from, he's home to like, oh man, he's home. Just, I don't know if I say butterflies in my stomach. I don't know if you guys know what, but if you've ever felt butterflies in your stomach when you saw your husband. But I would then move to have butterflies in my stomach. So God began to just help me. And let me tell you one thing. I had to ask God because so much had went on. I had to ask God to teach me how to love him. I was like, I don't love him no more. Teach me how to love him. If you're saying that my marriage was predestined, that there was something, and listen, we didn't have any titles then. Dream was not even a thought in our mind. I'm just still a youth leader. I'm a leader. I'm still doing what I do, but nothing about my life now was an inkling then. Nothing. Nothing. But I said, God, if you have a plan for my marriage and you don't want me to leave, love him through me until I can love him on my own. And that may be what you guys have to pray. Love my wife through me, Lord, until I can love her on my own. Love my husband through me until I can love him on my own. And for those of you say, well, I already love my wife. I already love my husband. As my grandmother would say, keep on living. Keep on living. Because if your marriage is supposed to be a threat to the kingdom of darkness, he is laying plans and traps for you right now. And I don't want you to be ignorant. I don't want you to be caught off guard. But I want you to start submitting that which you already have. I want you to make it tighter. I want you to know we can't fully know the plans of the enemy, but God will give us what we need to know. He will equip us with what we need to know. He will give us revelation and increase discernment as we need it. And so I want you to start praying. In Proverbs 6:31, we're told that the thief, when he is caught, that he has to pay 7 times. He has to restore 7 times. So what is the thief coming for? What is he coming to steal in your marriage? Okay. As I get ready to close with this, your promise, your peace, your prosperity, and your posterity, meaning your children, your inheritance, your purpose, your identity. And let me go a little bit slow because I know Bridget is putting these up. Your promise, your peace, your posterity, and your prosperity, your purpose, your identity, your love, your hope, your joy, and he wants your family. He wants your family. And maybe the enemy is after your marriage because you've given birth to some prophets, some teachers, some doctors, so some children whose voice is going to carry weight in the earth and carry weight in the spirit. Well, if the enemy can cause you to malfunction and be dysfunction as a husband and a wife, then he's got the attention of your children. So they may never reach their full destiny because you did not kick him out of the house. You did not kick him out of the house. Or you can say, well, you know, me and my husband just fine. Me and my wife just fine. But you don't serve God. And maybe you still produce. Come on. Maybe God is still producing through you a son or daughter that he has called for you to raise up to be a voice in the earth. But if you are not training that child to hear the voice of God, remember Hannah gave Samuel up. I need to put Samuel with the prophets so he can hear the voice of God. Because it doesn't say Ethno was a prophet. So he was a good husband. He was a good husband. So some of you have given birth to children who are going to be a threat to the kingdom of darkness. But if you have not raised them to hear the voice of the Lord, because y'all just in love, we just in love, we just in love. We don't need to go to church. We fine. We don't need to serve God. We fine. But your children need him. Your children need to be taught. Your children need to be raised. So for the enemy, the weapon that he's using against you is to make you think that you're all right. You make enough money. Y'all got money. Y'all can travel. Y'all can do everything. But serve God. So we good. I mean, we take our kids on vacations and we do all of this, but you're not serving God. So in that, the enemy is still trying to abort the destiny of your children. Still trying to abort the destiny of your children. Don't give up. Give in to God. Follow God's instructions. He's going to give you instructions. I believe that God is going to talk to some of you tonight. If you married again, if you married someone that God did not ordain for you to marry, he knows you married them. Do you think that was hidden from him? He knows you married them. He saw y'all dating and other things. Nothing, nothing is ever hidden from him. Nothing. So listen, you got to learn how to fight. Wives, you got to become warriors. Okay? The unbelieving husband is sanctified by the believing wife without a word, meaning you can't keep going to him, but you got to go to God. You got to go to God about him. And this is what I know from experience, that when you go to God about him, God is going to talk to you about you first. Okay? And you want that to happen because you want him to create within you a clean heart. And sometimes creating something within you, a clean heart, means that he's got to take some stuff out of you that you didn't even know was detrimental. Because everything that is not good for us does not look evil. So sometimes God has got to take something up out of you so that he can then position and posture you right to intercede for your husband and your children. So let God clean you up first. I want to end with this scripture, Isaiah 40, because I don't want you to be weary in well doing. When you become weary, just go find somebody. Find somebody. In that first marriage I had, I remember I had really, really long hair, but I had bald spots in my hair because and migraines was going on. And one day my migraine was so bad, um, and actually my husband at that time had raped me, and I just couldn't take it no more. And I called my pastor, and she said, "I'm sending somebody to get you." And she sent somebody to pick up me and my girls, and she didn't. She didn't like pray, like, oh, she didn't go to war. She didn't do any of that. She said, Deborah, lay down. She said, we got the kids. I must have slept for about 8 hours. They had my kids outside playing. They had fed my kids. I didn't hear a sound. I just needed to rest. Some of you just need to rest. You just need to rest. Find a safe place. Ask God to send you someone where you can draw from their strength, or they can provide a safe place for you so that you can just rest your mind. Isaiah 40:27-31. Why, O Jacob, did you say and declare, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord? Meaning God don't know what I'm going through. He can't see me. And that the justice due me escapes the notice of my God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become tired or grow weary. There is no searching of his understanding. He gives strength to the weary, and to him who has no might, he increases their power. Even youth grow weary and tired, and vigorous men stumble badly. But those who wait on the Lord, those who wait for the Lord, who expect, look for, and hope in Him, will gain new strength and renew their power. They will lift up their wings and rise up close to God, like eagles rising toward the sun. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not grow tired. Listen, I know this was a pop up. Probably was longer than I thought it was going to be, but with this new bill being passed, I want you to know that the enemy is going to try to find other ways to come in and sabotage your marriage, affect your belief. And it was already an increase with or without my knowledge about what happened with that act. I have already seen and witnessed the increase of attacks on marriages. The closer we get to the sound of that trumpet, the more we're going to see the enemy. But I believe Psalms 91. I believe that 1,000 may fall at my side and 10,000 at my right hand, but it won't come near my dwelling place. Only with my eyes shall I behold and see the reward of the wicked. I believe that. And so you got to make sure if you want to start claiming Psalms 91, you better make sure you're in position, that you're in right relationship with God. That's what you have to do. So listen, meet us back here tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, with Pastors Darren and LaShawn Aiden, as they have another. They teach so much. If you've been watching, you should have a whole notebook. Especially those that attend in person, you should have a whole notebook of information that they've given to help you not only strengthen your marriage, but help you to set an example in front of your children, your co-workers, your friends of what a godly marriage looks like. And so if you have not done that, don't be ashamed, don't be condemned, but start this night asking God to work on you first and then work on your marriage. Thank you all so much for watching us. We will see you again tomorrow night. We'll see you tomorrow night. And for those of you who can join us on Sunday, do so.